I never thought I'd be the kind of man who would plan revenge. But life has a way of changing you. I used to be the nice guy, the reliable husband, the one who played by the rules. That was before I found Sarah packing her bags that Tuesday evening. I remember every detail of that moment. The soft hum of the ceiling fan, the fading sunlight through our bedroom window, and the casual way she folded her designer clothes into her Louis Vuitton suitcase. The same suitcase I'd given her for our 5th anniversary. Going somewhere? I asked, leaning against the doorframe. Sarah didn't even look up. Just a business trip. There was something different about her voice, a note of excitement that made my stomach twist. Funny, I said, checking my phone. The company calendar doesn't show any trips this week. She paused for a moment, then continued packing. It's a last-minute thing. With David, the name hung in the air between us. Sarah finally looked up, and what I saw in her eyes made my blood run cold. Not guilt, not shame, just indifference. Yes, she said, with David. David Anderson, the CEO of her company. The man who'd been mentoring her for the past year. And when were you planning to tell me? She shrugged, placing another silk blouse in the suitcase. I'm telling you now. Sarah, my voice cracked slightly. What's really going on? She straightened up, smoothing her skirt. Do you really want to know, Jack? I nodded, though part of me already knew the answer would destroy everything. I'm leaving you, she said simply. David and I have been seeing each other for 6 months. The world tilted sideways. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of betrayal. You're having an affair? The words felt foreign in my mouth. It's more than an affair, she said, her eyes lighting up. David understands me. He sees my potential. And I don't. She laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, Jack. You see a nice house in the suburbs and 2.5 kids. David sees Paris, Tokyo, New York. So this is about money? It's about everything, she snapped. It's about living instead of existing. David's exciting, powerful, passionate, and married. I reminded her. Not for long. We got it all planned out. I felt sick. How long have you been planning this? Does it matter? She zipped up the suitcase. The point is, I'm done pretending. Done settling. Settling. 12 years of marriage reduced to settling. Yes, settling. For this house, this life, this mediocrity. Each word was a knife, but I refused to show pain. And what about our marriage vows? She rolled her eyes. We were kids, Jack. People change. I've changed. Into what? I asked quietly. Because the Sarah I married would never do this. The Sarah you married was naive and stupid, she spat. David showed me what I could be. You mean what you could buy? I corrected. With his money. Her eyes narrowed. At least he has money. What do you have? A middle management job and a mortgage? I stepped closer. I have integrity. She laughed again, cruel and cold. Integrity doesn't buy Chanel, Jack. It doesn't get you into the best restaurants or the right social circles. And that's what matters to you now. It's what's always mattered. I just stopped lying to myself about it. She grabbed her suitcase, brushing past me. Sarah, I called after her. If you walk out that door. She turned, one perfectly manicured eyebrow raised. What? You'll what, Jack? I met her gaze. You'll regret it. For a moment, just a moment, I saw uncertainty flicker across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by that cold smile. The only thing I regret, she said, is wasting 12 years with you. The front door slammed behind her. I stood there, listening to her heels click down the driveway. The car door open and close, the engine start. Then silence. Complete, crushing silence. I walked downstairs to our home office. My home office now. Sarah's laptop sat on the desk, forgotten in her rush to leave. I knew her password. Of course I did. It was our wedding date. The irony wasn't lost on me. The screen lit up, revealing her email. I didn't have to search long. The emails between her and David were right there, dozens of them, planning their future, laughing about their deception, mocking my ignorance. I read them all, each word burning into my brain. Then I started copying them. Every email, every attachment, every piece of evidence of their betrayal. My hands were steady as I worked. My mind was clear. The pain was still there, but it had crystallized into something else. Something cold. Something purposeful. Sarah thought she had won. She thought she could just walk away from our marriage, our life, with no consequences. She was wrong. I opened a new document and started making lists. Their favorite restaurants, their meeting spots, the gifts he'd bought her, the lies they'd told. I worked through the night, mapping out their affair, understanding their patterns, finding their weaknesses. By morning, I had a plan. Sarah wanted to play games? Fine. But she'd forgotten something important about me. I always played to win. I started with the finances. Our joint accounts were substantial. Sarah had insisted on combining everything when we got married. It's about trust, she'd said back then. I transferred everything except the minimum balance. Next, I called my old college friend, Mike Shun. He was a partner at one of the top law firms in the city now. Jack, it's been ages. What's up? I need a divorce lawyer, I said. The best you've got. Silence on the line. Jack, what happened? Sarah's been sleeping with her CEO. I have proof. More silence. Come to my office. Now. I arrived an hour later with a USB drive full of evidence. Mike's expression grew darker as he reviewed the emails. This is comprehensive, he said finally. I'm thorough. He looked up at me. What do you want? Everything. I said simply. I want her to lose everything. He nodded slowly. We can do that. But Jack. Yes. This is going to get ugly. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Good. Next, I called in sick to work. I had more important things to do, like visiting every bank where we had joint accounts, like documenting every gift David had given her, like photographing every designer item in her closet. Evidence, documentation, ammunition. Sarah had always said I was too methodical, too careful, too boring. She was about to learn the value of attention to detail. By evening, my phone was buzzing with texts from her. I ignored them all. Let her wonder. Let her worry. I had work to do. I created new email accounts, set up secure cloud storage, made copies of everything. Then I started drafting emails to David's wife, to the company's board of directors, to their HR department. Each one carefully worded, each one backed up with evidence, each one timed for maximum impact. Sarah called again. Again, I didn't answer. Instead, I ordered takeout and kept working, planning, preparing. The sun was setting when I finally took a break. I stood at our bedroom window, looking out at the neighborhood. Everything looked the same, but nothing was. My phone buzzed again. A text from Sarah. Why aren't you answering? We need to talk. I typed back. Nothing to talk about. Enjoy your trip. Then I turned off my phone. I had more important things to focus on, like destroying the life she'd built on lies, like making sure she and David learned about consequences, like teaching them both that karma isn't just a concept. Sometimes karma needs a helping hand, and I was ready to help. The game was just beginning, and this time I was writing the rules. Sarah had no idea what was coming, but she would. Soon, they both would. I went back to my laptop and kept working. The night was still young, and revenge, as they say, is a dish best served cold. I was just getting started. I spent the next 3 days preparing. Every detail had to be perfect. Timing would be everything. I knew Sarah and David were at some luxury resort, probably celebrating their freedom. Let them enjoy it while they could. I'd found their reservations in her email. The Four Seasons presidential suite. All on the company card, of course. How convenient. I started with David's wife, Elizabeth. Finding her private email wasn't hard. She ran a cherry foundation. My message was simple, direct. Your husband is having an affair with my wife. Attached were photos, emails, hotel receipts. I hit send at exactly 7 a.m. when I knew she checked her messages. Then I waited. The response came within minutes. A phone call. Is this Jack Thompson? Yes, Mrs. Anderson. Please. Her voice was steady, controlled. Call me Elizabeth. We should meet. We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe across town. Elizabeth Anderson was everything Sarah wasn't. Elegant without trying. Wealthy without flaunting it. And now, angry without showing it. How long have you known? She asked, stirring her untouched coffee. 3 days. You. I suspected, she said quietly. But suspecting is different from knowing. She studied the evidence on her tablet. The company card, she noted. That's interesting. I nodded. Very. The board won't like that. No, I agreed. They won't. Our eyes met across the table. Understanding passed between us. What's your plan? She asked. I told her. She listened, occasionally nodding. When I finished, she added her own suggestions. Better ones. After all, she'd been part of this world longer than Sarah. She knew where the bodies were buried, knew which strings to pull. By the time we finished our coffee, we had a new plan, a better plan. Why are you helping me? I asked. Elizabeth smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Because, Jack, some people need to learn that actions have consequences. She stood to leave, then paused. Oh, and Jack? Yes. Make it hurt. I spent the rest of the day implementing our plan. First, an anonymous tip to the SEC about David's suspicious trading patterns. Then, emails to key board members about his personal use of company resources. Finally, a carefully worded letter to HR documenting the affair. All from different sources. All untraceable. All timed to hit simultaneously. Sarah called again that evening. This time, I answered. Jack? Finally. Why haven't you been answering? Been busy, I said coolly. How's the resort? Silence. How did you? No. I know everything, Sarah. Jack, listen. No, you listen. Enjoy your last few hours of happiness. What's that supposed to mean? You'll see. I hung up. Her next call went to voicemail. And the next. And the next. I had more important things to do. Like watching David's company stock start to drop. Like seeing the first news alerts about potential misconduct. Like reading the urgent emails from the board calling for an emergency meeting. Sarah and David's perfect world was about to implode. And I had front row seats. The next morning, it all hit at once. The SEC investigation was announced. The board meeting was leaked. The affair became public. David's phone started ringing at 6 a.m. Sarah's at 6:05. I know because I could see their panic in real time. The emails flying back and forth. The desperate phone calls. The attempts to contain the damage. But it was too late. Elizabeth had already called her lawyers. The board had already suspended David. HR had already opened an investigation into Sarah. Their castle of cards was falling. And I wasn't done yet. Not even close. I had one more card to play. The divorce papers. Carefully crafted by Mike's team. Documenting every betrayal. Every lie. Every misused company dollar. I had them delivered to the resort. Special courier. Rush delivery. I wanted them to arrive during their lunch. They did. Sarah called immediately. What the hell is this? Divorce papers, I said calmly. I thought that was obvious. You're trying to ruin me. No, Sarah. You did that yourself. Jack, please. Goodbye, Sarah. I hung up again. Then I sat back and watched. Watched as David was forced to resign. Watched as Sarah was terminated. Watched as their perfect plan crumbled. Elizabeth's lawyers were ruthless. The prenup was ironclad. David would lose everything. And Sarah? Sarah would lose even more. Her job, her reputation, her future, all gone, just like our marriage. The media had a field day. CEO, scandal rocks tech giant. Executive affair leads to stock plunge. Power couples fall from grace. Sarah tried to contact me again, and again, and again. I let her messages pile up, each one more desperate than the last. Please, Jack, we need to talk. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. You've destroyed everything. That last one made me laugh. She still didn't get it. She had destroyed everything. I just made sure she couldn't escape the consequences. A week later, she showed up at our house, looking nothing like the confident woman who had walked out. Her designer clothes were wrinkled, her perfect makeup smeared, her eyes red from crying. I almost didn't recognize her. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I stepped aside. She walked into our living room, sat on our couch, looked at our photos on the wall. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you do this?" I sat across from her. "You really don't know?" She shook her head. "Because actions have consequences, Sarah. But you've ruined everything. My career, my reputation. Like you ruined our marriage." She flinched. "I made a mistake." "No." I cut her off. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. What you did was a choice. I never meant to get caught, to face consequences, to lose everything." She started crying. I felt nothing. "What am I supposed to do now?" she sobbed. I stood up. "That's not my problem anymore." "Jack, please." "Goodbye, Sarah." She left the same way she came, broken, defeated, alone, just like she'd left me. The difference was I had planned for this. I had a new job lined up in Seattle, a fresh start, a new life. Sarah had nothing. And David? Last I heard, he was facing criminal charges. Elizabeth made sure of that. Sometimes karma needs a helping hand. Sometimes justice needs a push. Sometimes the nice guy needs to play dirty. I packed to my office, looking at the empty house one last time. Our perfect life had been a lie. But the truth? The truth had set me free. I closed the door behind me. Seattle was waiting. And so was my future. A future without Sarah. Without lies. Without compromise. She had taught me one valuable lesson. Never underestimate the quiet ones. We're the ones who know how to plan, how to wait, how to win. I started my car and drove away. Not looking back. Not anymore. The game was over. And I had won. 3 years have passed since that day. Seattle turned out to be exactly what I needed. New city. New job. New life. I rarely think about Sarah anymore. But today was different. Today, I received an email from Mike. "Thought you might want to see this," was all it said. Attached was a local news article. Former tech executive pleads guilty to fraud. David Anderson's face stared back at me from the screen. Older now. Haunted. Broken. He'd finally been convicted. 3 to 5 years, the article said. I closed the laptop and looked out my office window. Seattle's skyline sparkled in the morning sun. I'm a VP now at a major tech firm. Funny how life works out. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "Lunch today." I smiled. Rachel was different. Smart. Independent. Honest. We'd met at a coffee shop 6 months after I moved here. She spilled her latte on my new suit. I asked her to dinner to make up for it. We've been together ever since. She knows about Sarah, about what happened. I told her everything on our third date. "You did what you had to do," was all she said. No judgment. No questions. Just understanding. I texted back. "Definitely. The usual place." "See you at 12, she replied. I turned back to my work, but my mind wandered. Last I heard, Sarah was working as a sales clerk in some boutique. Elizabeth had made sure she'd never work in tech again. Karma really is a beautiful thing, especially when it has help. My assistant knocked on my door. "Your 10 o'clock is here, Mr. Thompson." "Thanks, Jenny." "Send them in." Back to reality. Back to my new life. The one I built from the ashes of betrayal. The meeting went well. Another successful deal. Another step up the corporate ladder. Rachel was waiting at our usual table when I arrived. beautiful as always. But more than that, real, genuine. I saw the news about David, she said as I sat down. Mike sent it to you too? She nodded. How do you feel about it? I thought for a moment. Nothing, I realized. I feel nothing. She reached across the table, took my hand. That's good, she said. That means you've moved on. She was right. I had moved on. The anger was gone. The pain was gone. Even the satisfaction of revenge had faded. All that remained was peace. And Rachel, I have news, she said, squeezing my hand. Good news. She smiled. The best. I got the promotion. The San Francisco position? She nodded, eyes shining. They want me to head up the entire West Coast division. I felt my heart skip. Rachel, that's amazing. She bit her lip. There's just one thing. What? I'd have to move to San Francisco. The words hung between in us. Or, she continued, or you could come with me. I looked at her, really looked at her, saw our future in her eyes. Are you asking me to move in with you? She laughed. I'm asking for more than that, Jack Thompson. My heart stopped. Rachel, marry me, she said simply. No games, no manipulation, just truth. I thought about Sarah, about how different this felt, about how right it felt. Yes, I said. Her smile lit up the room. Later that night, as Rachel slept beside me, I checked my email one last time. There was a new message. From Sarah. Almost deleted it, but curiosity won. I heard you're getting married, it read. I hope she makes you happy. I hope she's better than I was. I'm sorry for everything. Goodbye, Jack. I closed the email, looked at Rachel, and finally understood. Sarah hadn't destroyed me. She'd freed me. Her betrayal had led me here. To Seattle. To success. To Rachel. To real love. I turned off my phone. Tomorrow, we'd start planning our move to San Francisco. Tomorrow, we'd start our future. But tonight? Tonight I just wanted to hold Rachel. To feel grateful. To feel blessed. To feel alive. The past was finally, truly behind me. And the future? The future was bright. The future was with Rachel. The future was mine. And